this meeting to order. The City of Palm Coast City Council meeting. It is Tuesday, June 6, 2017. It is 6:30 p.m. Please join me in the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mayor Holland?
Here.
Vice Mayor Nobile?
Here.
Councilmember Cuff?
Here.
Councilmember Clufus?
Here.
Councilmember Shipley?
Here.
Mayor, all members are present.
Thank you. I'll now entertain a motion. Am I not speaking into the mic? I'll now entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the City Council's May 16, 2017 City Council business and May 30th, 2017 City Council workshop.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, it passes unanimously. Okay, we will now move to the presentation portion of our agenda. We are presenting tonight. We're very excited to have two young ladies in our audience. I'm going to ask them to come up and stand at the podium. Mackenzie Gennaro and Angela Powell. These are the Flagler Titans Pop Warner cheerleaders, and they've been recognized by the Pop Warner Little League Scholars Incorporated, the nation's oldest youth football, cheerleading, and dance organization, for their accomplishments in the classroom and in the community. Both Palm Coast students were selected as Pop Warner Second Team All-American Scholars, a program recognizing the nation's top student athletes. 6,100 scholars qualified for the Pop Warner All-American Scholar Program this year, representing the top 2% of all scholar athletes across the country. The Pop Warner All-American Scholar Program requires a minimum of 96% grade point average to apply, and students are ranked by grade level 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th and above, using a scoring system determined by the GPA and the community service involvement. Both Mackenzie and Angela were honored first at the district and conference levels before receiving the national recognition. In addition, their Flagler Titans Pop Warner cheerleading team completed its spring season and won first place on all 4 of their competitions. They also participated in nationals at Disney last fall. Angela is 11 and just completed 5th grade. She is a daughter of Crystal Powell and Scott Berry and attends the Florida Virtual School. Her hobbies include Minecraft and Pokemon. She also plays tennis and recently started gymnastics. Mackenzie is also 11 and just completed 6th grade at Imagine School at Town Center. She is the daughter of Catherine Gennaro. Mackenzie plays volleyball and is in the STEM program at Imagine School. For their outstanding public academic excellence and accomplishments as Flagler Titan cheerleaders, the City of Palm Coast is pleased to present a Palm Coast Sunshine to Mackenzie Gennaro and Angela Powell. Did you guys want to say anything?
What's up, people?
Okay.
Photo up.
Mackenzie, congratulations. Great job. Good job. Good job.
Crushed it. Well, don't leave me hanging. Don't leave me hanging. Don't leave me hanging.
So do you guys want to come between us? We'll take some photos.
All right, I'm gonna do a few. Look at me. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. All right, keep smiling because there's a bigger thing.
Okay.
Got it?
Right.
All right.
Congratulations. Congratulations again, and we're very proud of both of you. Thank you, and keep up the great work. Thank you. Okay, we'll now move to the presentation, agenda item number 3, which is presentation on Florida Division of Emergency Management, and the ISO will present City of Palm Coast Class 4 designation plaque. Mr. Landon.
Well, I am very proud to introduce this one. You know, we lots of times are recognized statewide and nationally for many of our programs, but this one's really special. Literally living in a swamp or an area that was a swamp and the kind of rain we get, floodplain management and trying to prevent flooding is very important, and we have actually done an excellent job here. And at the national level, we've been recognized for those efforts. I don't know how much thunder I'm going to steal, but increasing our ranking to a 4 makes us the 13th city or entity in the whole nation to have a 4 or better. If you really think about that, that's 13 in the whole nation with all the cities. So we've actually have some special guests here, but first we're going to introduce the team that makes it happen. And because these type of things, it does take a team approach. And Denise Bevan is our team leader with our floodplain management team, and she's going to take it from here.
Thank you, Mr. Landon. It is a very exciting night for us, and a lot of work goes into it citywide. This is our floodplain management team. They're going to be recognized by our speakers tonight, and I know our speakers are very eager to get in front of the podium and share this accomplishment with the City of Palm Coast. So without further ado, I do want to invite our first speaker up to the podium, Ms. Susan Wilson. She's with Region 4 of FEMA, and she's the chief of the Floodplain Management Insurance Branch. So I'd like to welcome Ms. Wilson, please.
So I get a team too. This is great. Good evening. My name is Susan Wilson, and I'm chief of the Floodplain Management Insurance Branch for FEMA Region 4 that's located in Atlanta. It's my great honor to be here with you tonight to recognize the City of Palm Coast's achievement of a community rating system Class 4 rating. First, it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Danny Henson. Mr. Henson is with the Florida Division of Emergency Management for a few words about the community rating system. Danny?
Thank you very much, and I am very honored to be here as well. To think that Palm Coast received, or earned, not received, earned a Class 4 is just fantastic. The Division of Emergency Management has something called the CRS Florida Initiative, and it's basically something that we go out and try to help communities who are struggling, who have administrative burdens they just can't quite get over to whatever classification they are trying to desire to get. But Palm Coast, you guys and this team did a fantastic job. You didn't really need our help. So, but the director of the Florida Division of Emergency Management, Mr. Brian Kuhn, wanted to give you a letter, and I would like to read it if I could, please, to make it part of the meeting. Mayor Holland and council members, congratulations on your outstanding achievement. The hard work and dedication exhibited by you and your CRS team will have immediate and positive impacts for all the citizens of Palm Coast. By taking steps to make your community more resilient to floods, you will recover from future disasters more quickly and make Palm Coast a more desirable location to build a business or raise a family. And by reducing the cost of flood insurance, you are putting money back in the pockets of your residents and encouraging others to acquire and maintain coverage against the most prevalent natural hazard. I applaud your hard work and look forward to telling other Florida communities about your accomplishment and encourage them to follow your example. Thank you, Brian Kuhn, Director of the Florida Division of Emergency Management. So I have a copy I'll give to you in a few minutes then. I do want to introduce Sue Hoffensberger, who is the ISO specialist. The ISO is the Insurance Services Office, and they're the contractor for FEMA for this project and for this program. So Sue was actually the one who helped Denise and the staff put all these points and documentation together. So, Sue?
Good evening. Thank you, Danny. I'm going to speak very quickly because I understand you have a very heavy agenda. Good evening, Mayor Holland, council members. I am Sue Hopfinsberger. Good job, Danny. Senior ISO field specialist for the area. ISO is a company with what I affectionately call a flood group within a much larger Fortune 500 company, Verisk Analytics. As Susan will mention, ISO, or Danny mentioned, ISO administers the program for FEMA. It is a privilege to work with the city's eager, engaged professional floodplain management team, and I wanted to emphasize the word team. My goal tonight is to shine a spotlight on 5 of the many CRS activities the team implemented and now maintains for the safety of and the benefit of Palm Coast residents and their visitors. Class 9 through 5 communities implement and maintain many creditable activities. Some have enough credit to earn a Class 4, but have not met the rigorous prerequisites that warrant this classification. The best they can do is maintain a Class 5 while working on them. To earn a Class 4, the city's government demonstrated dedication to creditable activities geared toward minimizing flood losses, reduction of risk, future flooding, protecting natural floodplain functions, and protecting personal property, and most importantly, protecting its citizens from the dangers of flooding. The results are tangible. My local government saves me money on insurance premium bills, which gives me more to spend elsewhere or save. They are helping to protect my property, and they help keep me safe. One of approximately 19,000 acres of special flood hazard area, or the high hazard areas in Palm Coast, new development is prohibited in 59% of it. This includes parks, recreation areas, conservation easements, deed restrictions, and development agreements. This 59% is a combination of areas owned by private entities, the state, the county, the city, and water management districts, namely areas such as Long Creek Nature Preserve, Big Mulberry Branch, and both Old Brick and Northeast Corridor Greenways. Here, the council adopted regulations with administration practices and inspection procedures that are comprehensively enforced throughout the entire community, not just the city's floodplain. Across the U.S., I'm not sure which ones, there are some states that even have laws prohibiting communities from adopting and enforcing building codes. Florida has one of the most demanding state building codes across the United States. The city of Palm Coast goes above and beyond that. For example, the city requires all new construction and substantially improved buildings in high hazard areas to be built at least 1 foot above the base flood elevation. That includes equipment and mechanical items like air conditioning units and water heaters. 3, Palm Coast manages its watersheds. I think there are about 15 watersheds. Palm Coast identified wetlands within its watersheds. It manages runoff of the watershed so flood flows do not increase due to new development in the area. And it has a dedicated funding source to do so with a stormwater utility fee. These fees fund maintenance of canals, culverts, ditches, retention, detention areas, dikes, weirs, erosion, sediment control, and the cleaning of outfalls, curbs, gutters, and pipes, keeping all of those water-seeking birds, called grocery carts, out of the drainage system. 4, the city of Palm Coast employs professionals for its floodplain management staff and invests in their training and certifications. Additionally, they ensure the city's floodplain development documents are safeguarded by digital and off-site record storage. There's so much more, but I will spotlight one last creditable effort: action-oriented, behavior-changing outreach to Palm Coast residents. There is a concerted effort to inform everyone, citizens and visitors, about emergency management activity focused on the safety of everyone before, during, and after a flood. The outreach spurs citizens into action, such as building responsibly, reporting illegal dumping in the storm system, understanding one's individual exposure to flood risks, protecting areas that are vital to natural floodplain functioning, and encouraging the purchase of adequate flood insurance to help individual recovery when a flood occurs without taking on loan payments. It is a privilege and a pleasure to be working with the city's eager, engaged, and professional floodplain management team. It's always a bonus when the effort of talented, conscientious people like this at work enhances both my professional and personal quality of life. Congratulations on attaining your CRS Class 4. It's truly an extraordinary achievement, and thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, Sue. The city of Palm Coast, Florida began participating in the National Flood Insurance Program in February of 2002. Since entering the NFIP, we have seen the city of Palm Coast make increased strides in the administration and enforcement of its floodplain management program. The result of these efforts are a safer and more resilient community. In the early 90s, FEMA began to recognize communities for their exceptional efforts in floodplain management and created the Community Rating System, or CRS program. It was intended to give premium discounts to those communities for those specific activities, as Sue mentioned, just a number of the many activities Palm Coast is currently implementing. Each activity has points associated with it, and for every 500 points, a community gets a class rating increase, and the highest level is a 1, similar to the fire rating. So a class 1, and there's only one class 1 community in the country, and that's Roseville, California. They get a 45% premium discount for those policyholders that are in the special flood hazard area. So those discounts are provided as an incentive for flood protection, for preparedness activities, and for other mitigation activities that can help save lives and protect property from flooding. Now, policyholders in the city of Palm Coast first began receiving discounts under CRS in May of 2004. The city became a Class 7, which is a 15% discount. Now, on May 1st, 2017, Palm Coast became a CRS program Class 4. This means that Palm Coast is amongst a group in our 8-state region, a group of 5 communities that are CRS Class 3 or 4. And as the city manager already mentioned, this is only one of 13 communities nationwide that is a CRS Class 4 or better. So we're very proud to have Palm Coast as a CRS Class 4 in our region. Now, what does this mean to your policyholders? Well, currently there are 4,419 policies in the National Flood Insurance Program. That represents $1.27 billion in flood insurance coverage. Policyholders in the special flood hazard area, those are the high-risk flood areas, now receive a 30% discount on their premium. Now, that amounts to about an average savings of about $120 for every policyholder that's in the special flood hazard area. So the community as a whole will receive annual premium discounts of over $100,000. So that's really significant. Now, while NFIP policyholders receive those insurance premium discounts, all citizens, residents, property owners, as well as renters benefit from a safer built environment and enjoy a city that's less vulnerable to flood damage and will be more resilient after future flood events. So now I would like to introduce Mr. Jesse Munoz. Mr. Munoz is the Mitigation Division Director from FEMA Region 4 to present the CRS Class 4 plaque. Mr. Munoz.
Susan, would you mind holding it?
Oh, sure.
Good evening, Mayor Holland, council members. I'm here today representing FEMA to congratulate the city of Palm Coast for its outstanding contributions and its continued efforts towards outstanding floodplain management. In particular, I'd like to recognize the city of CRS team that made this happen. First, Denise Bevan. If you wouldn't mind raising your hand. Denise Bevan, City Administration Coordinator. Damaris Ramirez, Planner. Okay. Kendra Iannotti, Executive Assistant to the City Manager. Mike Brennan, Stormwater Manager.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, Mike Peel, City Engineer. Conrad Troja, Swale Specialist. Kathy Omberg, GIS Specialist. Okay, Ricky Lee, Chief Building Official. Okay. Okay, Daniel Ruiz, Plans Examiner. Laura Nelson, Senior Mitigation Planner with Flagler County Emergency Management. Okay, thank you. Well, I'd also like to recognize and thank the many departments that play key roles in emergency management, especially in floodplain management, for their contributions and dedication to Palm Coast's CRS program. At this time, I would like to present this plaque to the Mayor Holland and congratulate the City of Palm Coast for its Class 4 rating. Mayor, would you like me to read the plaque for the audience? This plaque here, which reads, City of Palm Coast successfully participates in the National Flood Insurance Program Community Rating System. The community has undertaken a series of meaningful activities to protect its citizens from losses caused by flooding and has significantly exceeded the requirements for NFIP participation and effective floodplain management. Signed by Roy E. Wright, Deputy Associate Administrator for the Federal Emergency Management Agency. Team? Thank you very much.
Okay, I just need you to squeeze together just a little bit more. We're close, but we're not quite there. Okay, we got it. All right, I'm going to take a few, so keep smiling. 1, 2, 3. This is truly a happy moment. 1, 2, 3. And we'll do one more. 1, 2, 3. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The company I work for, ACI,
Okay.
understood, but yeah, funny to hear that. Okay. See ya. Yeah.
Before everyone leaves, I just really want to say thank you again to everyone involved with this project and this process. Palm Coast is a city of very high standards. We do that for very deliberate reasons. We just sustained a major hurricane, Hurricane Matthew, and you could see very clearly that these decisions we make impact flooding issues when we sustain these types of storms within our community. But also for the cost-saving measures for our residents, we try to really view those long-term. So we could not do this without really our dedicated staff of the City of Palm Coast and the collaborative efforts of our regulatory agencies. So thank you very much. Thank you. We'll move on to a second reading of agenda item number 4, which is an ordinance, so I'll turn it over to our city attorney.
Yes, Madam Mayor, this is an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Palm Coast, Florida, providing for the amendment of the official zoning map as established in Section 2.06 of the City of Palm Coast Unified Land Development Code. This ordinance amends the official zoning map for approximately 17.5 more or less acres. It's for that parcel, generally located 800 feet north of Matanzas Woods Parkway, west of London Dairy, as legally described in an exhibit attached to the ordinance as Exhibit A. We're rezoning from multifamily residential 1, or MFR1, to single-family residential 1, or SFR1. This ordinance provides for conflict severability, non-codification, and provides for an effective date. Mayor, Council, this is, as we stated before, a quasi-judicial matter. If there have been any ex parte communications since the first reading, those should be disclosed at this time.
Any ex parte communications? Seeing none? Okay. Mr.
Mayor,
Lambert.
City Council, this is actually the second reading of this ordinance. This is a very popular proposal because it's actually going from a multifamily to single-family, something the Matanzas Woods neighborhood has requested. And we've had no negative comments or no comments at all from last reading. We believe it's ready for final action on behalf of
Okay.
City Council.
Any council have any questions before I open it up to the public for public comment? Open up to the public for agenda item number 4. Any member of the public wish to make comment, please do so at this time. Seeing none, I'll close public comment. I'll take it back to this council. I'll entertain a motion.
Move approval? Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, it passes unanimously. Agenda item number 5, again, a second reading of the ordinance. Mr. Reichman.
Yes, Mayor. This is an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Palm Coast, Florida, providing for the amendment of the official zoning map as established in Section 2.06 of the City of Palm Coast Unified Land Development Code. This ordinance amends the official zoning map for approximately 5 acres, more or less, for that size parcel generally located north of Matanzas Woods Parkway, east of Londonderry Drive, and south of Longview Lane. That parcel is legally described in an Exhibit A to the ordinance. The rezoning is from multifamily residential 2, or MFR2, to single-family residential 2, or SFR2. This ordinance also provides for preservation zoning district, for conflicts, severability, for non-codification, and provides for an effective date. Mayor, Council, also, this also is a quasi-judicial matter, so if there's been any ex parte communications since the first reading, those should be disclosed.
Any ex parte communication? Seeing none. Mr. Landon?
Mayor, City Council, once again, this is second reading, once again from multifamily to single family. Before you take action on this, I want to recognize Ray Tyner and his staff in working with the neighborhood and working with these property owners. For those of you that may know the history, we've had many, many long nights and controversial discussions about these properties at multifamily. And as you can see, it's all very positive at this point where all parties have come together, worked together on something that's acceptable. And I think that's attributed to Ray and his staff in pulling everybody together. So I want to give him a little shout out for that effort. With that, we believe this item is ready for final action by City Council.
Council members, any questions or discussions on this item before I open it to the public? Seeing none, I'll open it to the public. Any member of the public wish to discuss agenda item number 5, please do so at this time. Seeing none, I'll take it back to the council. I'll entertain a motion.
Move approval?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, it passes unanimously. Now I'll move to agenda item number 6, which is actually a first reading, but again, it's an ordinance, so Mr. Reichman.
Mayor, this is an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Palm Coast, Florida, repealing and replacing Chapter 2, Article 1, Division 3, Purchases and Contractual Services, Sections 227 through 231, and repealing Chapter 16, Article 6, Sections 201 through 206 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Palm Coast. This ordinance provides for severability, codification, for conflicts, and provides for an effective date. Mayor, Council, this is a legislative matter, so you can have all the ex parte communications you want.
Okay?
Mayor, City Council, listen. Last time we updated our procurement policies was about handling that for us in his department, and so he has a little presentation and proposal to bring our procurement policies up to date. So, Bo, take it from here.
Sure. Good evening, Mayor and Council. As Mr. Land stated, the last time our policy was updated was quite a long time ago. So city staff took this opportunity, along with some of the council feedback we received regarding the local preference, to take a look at our procurement policy. And tonight, a little different in the workshop, I'm mainly going to cover the business item that you have in front of you. So basically, in general, we consolidated both the local preference and the purchasing policy into one location in the city code, and that's for ease of use and finding by vendors and the public at large. We reviewed, organized, and updated many of the sections. The major changes I'm going to cover are one, to the local preference, which was discussed at your workshop, and then our minimum requirements for the different procurement processes we go through. And also, we added bid protest procedures to document basically, what the process is that vendors would go through if they feel like they are unfairly treated in the bid process. Our current local preference that exists in our Code of Ordinances today provides a preference to both Palm Coast and Flagler County businesses and provides 3% under 30,000 and 5% over 30,000 with a cap of $10,000. After discussion with City Council during workshop, the proposal by consensus was to increase that local preference to $20,000 with 5% of the first bid of the $200,000 amount and then 3% above that. And basically this provides a preference to our local vendors that submit bids and gives them a slight advantage when it goes through the bidding process. The other change in the Code of Ordinances is really the minimum requirements that staff goes through when seeking vendors to buy goods and services. No real changes in the lower amounts in the informal processes, but a little bit of a change in our formal process. Currently, over $25,000, we go for very formal bids, which is an intensive multiple-month process. We are seeking to increase that to $50,000, but we will have a formal process, once again, still advertised on our website and made available to vendors in the world for those purchasing approval authorities between $30,000 and $50,000. And once again, as stated in the workshop, these are the minimum requirements. There are lots of services and goods below those amounts that we do go to bid, depending on the complexity of the good or service. And then finally, previously, our bid protest procedures were only available in our bid documents. We wanted to make that very clear and upfront to vendors and also place it in our Code of Ordinances. Bid protests can cause delays in award of bids and could put grants at risk and increase costs to the city if the bid protest is unfounded. And so we wanted to lay out the rules and regulations and process for vendors when they feel they want to protest the award. The first step in the process, there's no cost to the vendor. They can appeal the decision of the purchasing coordinators to myself. When they go beyond that, then we're asking that they post an appeal bond to continue down that road in the process because it can cause delays in major construction projects and put grants at jeopardy. And then, of course, at the end of the process, City Council, if they choose to appeal, is the final disposition for a bid protest. That basically covers my presentation. I'm available for any questions.
Any questions, council members?
I just have one. The bids that come to us are still anything over 30,000. I know that was something we discussed in the workshop. So that will still be.
I believe that remained the same.
Yes, there's no change in City Council's approval authority, which is 30,000.
And we'll open up to the public. I just had one question and a statement. When we change this process, I think it's really important when we're trying to award as many local bids as possible that we really do an outreach through this process. So I'd really like us to approach, and whether it be the chamber or whomever, but be very, very proactive in how we engage our local businesses. And also maybe just go through a series of how to do business through the city when we do put these bids out. We really do want to hire as many local companies as possible. So it's great when we set these up, and it's great to change the formulas. But if it's not as well known throughout our business community, we're really only doing half of our job. So I'd like to see that happen and really encourage it to be a very aggressive approach in the engagement process.
Good point.
If I could just add, too, it's on the staff side as well. We try to educate our staff members about local options available as well. So.
Okay. We'll now open up to the public. Any member of the public wish to discuss agenda item number 6, please do so at this time. Seeing none, I'll close public comment. I'll take it back to this council and I'll entertain a motion.
Move approval. Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, it passes unanimously. Thank you, Bo. Now move to our resolution, agenda item number 7, a resolution, 2017, approving a work order to Lassiter Transportation Group Incorporated for the city's continuous street lighting master plan and street lighting design services for Belterre Boulevard and Lakeview Boulevard. Mr. Landon.
Mayor, City Council, streetlights is a topic we hear a lot about right now. So before we get into the pertinent continuous street lighting proposal tonight, I always try to educate as many people that will listen as to what our current program is. Because I hear all the time about, well, you know, I want a street light at my house or on the corner, and there are ways of getting that done. First of all, neighborhood street lights. If it's a street intersection, you know, one of our city's street intersections, and it doesn't have a street light, all it takes is one request. And the street lights are then attached to the FP&L electric pole that we have at our intersections. And it's actually attached by FP&L, and they own the pole and the light, and then they charge us depending on exactly there's different tariffs they have. But so anybody can actually request a street light in a residential area at the intersections. There's also the security lights that people can request at their residence where they have a power pole, and FP&L will attach a light there and point it towards the house versus towards the street, and then that gets attached to the resident's bill if they request that light, but that's a request to FP&L. And then the last program we have is the continuous lighting along our major thoroughfares. And this is where you see those every time we do a new street. You're going to see us put in the continuous street lights. But we have the gaps, those streets that were built a long time ago by the original developer ITT, that they did not include street lights. And historically, we have been attempting to fill in those gaps. The presentation tonight is a continuation of that program. First of all, identifying the priorities, but then also continuing with, or starting the design, not continuing, starting the design for the two priorities previously stated by City Council, and that is Belterre from Palm Coast Parkway to State Road 100, and then Lakeview up in the L section. And Don is going to give you the details for the program now.
Thank you. Good evening, Ms. Mayor and City Council. Just to piggyback on what Mr. Landon was saying, a streetlight request is actually incredibly easy to do. Somebody can either call into customer service, or you can actually go onto our website, do a quick search for streetlights. The streetlight request form is there and comes directly to the department. The criteria is there. It's all spelled out, and it's relatively easy. And somebody will actually go out to check it and make contact with the person that puts in the request. But what we're here tonight about is continuing streetlights. When this all started, this has been going on for quite a while, we've been discussing this, and first phase was to drop back to what we already knew, and that was our inventory. Currently, our streetlight inventory is a little over 6,700 lights citywide, but as Mr. Landon mentioned, over 4,000 of those are actually residential lights or private lights. These are the ones that, like you said, are actually pointed towards. I'm sorry?
Are those the pink ones on this map?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. Yeah, so those are the ones that, as Mr. Landon said, are pointed towards somebody's house. They're actually not on our bill. They're actually on their resident's bill, or they're lights that are owned by another entity, such as an HOA. But for city, we have a little over 2,700 lights. 1,100, a little over 1,100 of those are in residential areas. And the 19 most recent installations that we've done are all LED, and we will be continuing to do LED installations from here on out. And a little over 1,500 are our continuous lighting, and 188 of those are also LED. So that's what we knew. Once we knew what we had, it was decide where we actually wanted these lights. So it was identify the thoroughfares we wanted to put them on. We actually have quite a few, but when we did this process, we actually found a lot of gaps. So identifying the gaps, now we knew what our work plan was, basically. This is a very specialized engineering feat to design street lighting. So we put out LOIs, or letter of interest, to our already engineering consulting firms that are under continuing service with us. We put it out as a two-step process. Develop a master plan to help us put together a plan on how we could do all these over time. And criteria of what do we do first and why. And then the second phase was to, as Mr. Landon said, start the first two designs for the two projects that were council priority. And through this process, Lassiter Transportation Group responded. We were very happy about that. They're experts in this field. I spent a lot of time recently going over this whole project with them and came up with cost for it. To do a study and develop a master plan, it's a little over $28,500. The lighting design for Belterre, which I said this to somebody and they were surprised, is a little over 5.5 miles. It's a lot longer than people think. That's just over $55,000. And the lighting design for Lakeview Boulevard, which is a little over 1.25 miles, is $23,600. So what we're bringing to you tonight is a request for the adoption of the resolution to approve the work order for Lassiter Transportation Group in the amount of $107,630, so we can get this process started.
Council, I'll open up to questions.
Good question.
Vice Mayor Nobile.
Okay, so give me a little bit more detail on the master plan. So I understand when they're going to go in and design, you know, the light layout for Belterre or for Belterre and Lakeview. But the master plan, that sounds like it's bigger, but I'm trying to figure out what they're doing in that.
Well, it's an overall plan. We actually have a lot of these, and it covers a lot of ground, and it's a lot of lights, and there's going to be a capital expense associated with this. It's large enough that we're not going to be able to do it in 1 year.
Correct.
So we need a criteria. What gets done first? And a rationale for that. So we'll take a bunch of statistics into effect: nighttime crashes, speed limits, accessibility.
And this is what Lassiter's going to do?
Yes. And given that data, they'll place a criteria on each of these corridors that we've identified and give us a layout, which should be done first, in what order, and then put together a 5-year plan. And the idea is we do some designs 1 year and then program them into the city's CIP plan for the next year for construction. So we have an ongoing project, so these could just keep going.
Okay, now, the $23,000 for the Lakeview.
Yes.
Is that near a minimum charge to do this? Because it's only like 20% of the Belterre distance.
Right.
So I'm trying to rationalize why half the cost for only 20% of the.
Sure.
And I know there might be, you know, there's some things that cost the same,
Yes.
you know, whatever you do, and I'm just trying to get an idea if that's what we're dealing with here.
Actually, there's a representative from Lassiter here. You
Oh.
might be able to answer that a little bit better, Andy. This is Andy Ames, who's been our contact with Lassiter. Been working well with him.
Did I make sense with my question?
Yes,
I think so.
Okay.
Ms. Mayor, City Council. Andy Ames of Lassiter Transportation Group. The master plan study is like Don mentioned, you're going to look into the different LED fixtures versus the high-pressure sodium fixtures. So all these existing circuits that you have in place are high-pressure sodium. And when you change those out, the photometric footprints have to be very similar to get a uniformity in the road system. So part of the master plan is identifying which type of LED light will be a best fit scenario to upgrade those systems. So it minimizes the cost. That's part of it. And then it's a matter of prioritizing either existing systems that are already there as upgrades or developing new circuit systems. So in the case of the Matanzas area study on Londonderry, Lakeview, sorry.
Yeah.
I get confused sometimes. The one on Lakeview, it is a fairly straightforward project. The hardest part with it is trying to identify with the existing FPL pole spacing out there, which LED light is going to work best in the area. So we have to run a photometric footprint, of different scenario, different LED types. We want to take into account the light level, because it is in a residential area to some degree, and factor all of those things in with nighttime crashes, concerns for safety, as part of a matrix of understanding. And so that'll be part of the project. In the design, part of these budgets include an allowance for survey. In the past, most of these types probably will not need detailed survey. However, in the case of Belterre, FPL, if they do not have a pole line in the right spot along the road, you may have to put your own new poles in for that. And if you have to add circuits, the circuit design has to be done as well. So each project has probably somewhere about half of the prices for survey. And if it's not needed and we're able to work with the GIS files, we can save that. And it's the same in Belterre. There's an allowance for survey as well. And that could be reduced if we're able to use the GIS files.
Did that answer your question?
It's close enough.
Councilmember Clufus?
Absolutely. In my mind, the safety of Palm Coast residents is an absolute priority, and that's why we're exploring continuous lighting solutions. And I'm confident that Lassiter is capable of providing an array of strategies to move forward swiftly and effectively. I've read the project overview and the corresponding work order, and after last week's workshop, I want to reiterate several points of emphasis and gain consensus from my peers that we would like them explored. One is a cost analysis of an FP&L-owned solution, specifically for new poles versus Palm Coast incurring the front-loaded cost of owning those poles. It's prudent for the council to look at this potential investment over a period of time, perhaps a 10, 15, or even 20-year duration. I fear we could enter an agreement which locks the city into an endless cycle of lease payments for lights that we'll never own. I raise this concern because of the fact that we currently have 6,700 lights in the city of Palm Coast, and we own less than 2 dozen, all while paying nearly $700,000 a year to FP&L. Second, the future is now. Intelligent street lighting systems, also referred to as adaptive street lighting, are very much a real thing. Cost-saving opportunities exist in the form of motion-activated dimmable lights that work in conjunction with one another via machine-to-machine communication. In addition to the illumination systems such a system would produce, very usable data that we can leverage for intelligent traffic systems, which would create a safer roadway for pedestrians and cyclists alike. In 2014, the U.S. Department of Transportation actually published its guidelines for the implementation of reduced lighting on roadways and adaptive lighting systems. So while these systems are new, they are documented and regulated. An excerpt from the guidelines says, these guidelines for the implementation of reduced lighting on roadways provide a process which an agency or lighting designer can select the required lighting level for a road or street and implement adaptive lighting for lighting installation or lighting retrofit. And these documents supplement their existing lighting guidelines. Verizon, who the city already has an existing relationship with to provide our communications, is specifically focusing on this as a new channel of business for their smart city lighting initiatives. Philips Lighting and Siemens Lighting are also emerging as leaders in this industry, and we could potentially be their model city, which they use to highlight the effectiveness of their systems in the future. And I believe it's responsible for our council to give Lassiter the direction that we would like these opportunities explored.
Okay. Well, to that point, I'd like to reiterate a few of your statements, Councilmember Clufus. Does this, with the FP&L, are we locked into a long-term agreement with FP&L once they build our light fixtures, or put up their light fixtures that they own?
Well,
Is it just a forever relationship that we?
they're their lights, and so we're basically paying electricity for their lights, and then they maintain all those lights. If we can not pay the bill anytime, and then they'll just turn the lights off. So there is no long-term agreement per se from that standpoint, but we've never contemplated the idea we'd start turning streetlights off. In this scenario, what the proposal before you tonight is to continuing that same relationship with continuous lighting. They require the cities to do the design. Then we turn the design over to them, and then they install the lights. They own the lights, they maintain them, And depending on the situation, whether, if they can put it on an existing pole, then it's obviously cheaper, and we don't pay as much a monthly bill. So this proposal would be to continue with that relationship with FP&L.
So, and then the second statement, I mean, I know you and I have talked about the Verizon thing, 'cause I had a representative that gave me a card. Is that going to be included in sort of a look into this as an option?
There's nothing in this proposal that they were been tasked to look at us putting in our own lights or going out with another company put in lights. With the Verizon and other people that are approaching us would be more of our private lights, like in parking lots, and changing those out to LEDs, and even FP&L will take over the management, the maintenance of those private lights. The idea is that most businesses don't want to have to deal with dealing with the poles and the changing out the light bulbs and all those because of the height and things that go along with that. But this is not part of that proposal. This is the direction of City Council to continue our continuous lighting program, which requires first to have the design. The master plan is intended, as Don was saying, we need to know how much it's going to cost in the future, how much we can afford, need to have some criteria because, well, I want my street next. Well, then somebody else, and so then we have a criteria. Just same thing we did with our trail system. We've done with our street systems where we have a master plan and it goes into our 5-year capital improvement plan. That's what is before you tonight. As far as us taking over and doing our own lighting system, no, that's not in this proposal. That would be a whole different animal for us to take a look at.
Let me ask a few questions. Have you ever looked at the Lassiter, has the Lassiter Group ever looked at alternative methods of lighting within communities?
In my previous employment as assistant county engineer for St. Johns County, we ran the same programs with FPL, with Jacksonville Electric, and with Beaches Energy. There's a few things to consider if you run your own systems. One of them is the maintenance, which Mr. Landon mentioned. Maintenance costs can be pretty excessive. Most of these lines are high voltage. So you're dealing with high voltage and skilled labor and bucket trucks and equipment that you got to have on staff, which increases your maintenance costs. At the St. Johns County level, we found the majority of street lighting to be relatively expensive on your own because the upfront cost became kind of cost prohibitive at a local government level.
So did St. Johns County pay? I mean, they obviously paid for the usage of, they didn't own their own electricity. I mean, JEA is completely different than St.
Correct.
Johns County. So
Absolutely.
they were paying FP&L, but they were owning the lights, which gave them the ability to put whatever they wanted on those lights.
No, what he's saying is that St. Johns County has the same program we do.
Yeah.
So they didn't own any of their lights?
No, and any roads where we did maintain for the state of Florida, DOT, some of the DOT road lighting. And that is a program DOT is starting for the DOT roads, trying to push that to local government. To the point of like Phillips and Siemens, the adaptive lighting programs, there are benefits and ways to do this. Some of the bulbs and fixtures and ballasts are selected, but they may not be part of the tariff situation. So in order to do something of that nature, the fixture has to be able to accommodate those types of ballasts and those types of fixtures.
Will that be included in your your comprehensive study, is looking at maybe a long-term cost-saving measure for us to be able to integrate those types of structures?
So I think best way to try to summarize it, the way it's written right now, we're looking at corridors and the retrofits and new systems under the FPL system. In an effort to look at additional costs, they can be done, but it wasn't part of the original scope. It really comes down to looking through the different types of photometrics you get from Philips and their LED fixtures, or the other manufacturers like Siemens or any of these other ones that make them.
So can you address the dimming of the lights that was
Sure.
addressed by Councilmember Clufus?
Okay, so with street lighting, one of the more important elements is uniformity. And so part of the reason we really need to look at which light fixture works best with the FPL pole spacing is to maintain a uniform light level on the road. When you dim, you tend to drop the light level. The light levels come out in different intensities. They're going to have a very bright area directly below, but as you move 10 feet, 20 feet, 30 feet out, the photometric curves start to diminish. So when you drop these on a road system, you can start to create dark and light spots in the system. Now, there were at the time with the economics downturn, some cities around the nation who were turning off every other light. This wasn't a policy. It would be better to turn the whole road off than to do every other light for that reason, the light to dark. So considering a system like an adaptive light program where maybe you want to have a brightness level from dusk to 2 a.m., 3 a.m., and from 3 a.m. to 6 at a different level, you would need to really look at the photometric evaluation, or you'd have to look at the photometrics of each luminaire that you have. You'd have to determine what's going to work at this lumen level and what's going to work at the next, and if you need to supplement those gaps with other heads.
So will dimming be included in your comprehensive look?
Not at this time, no.
So, and I mean, I guess when we're talking about cost, I mean, so FP&L, every so often, in their infinite wisdom, goes before the Public Service Commission and requests a rate increase. And they are a very strong lobbying arm in the state of Florida, and oftentimes, they're not always turned down. So we are subject to, really, we're subject to what their bottom line is going to be based on what the Public Service Commission grants them as an allowable cost. And so in your estimations, you've been doing this for a long time, how many times have you seen FP&L go before the Public Service Commission?
At the state level,
and ask for a rate increase?
I know it happens quite frequently,
Yeah.
even in the downturns, you know.
Yeah, it's happened a lot. I mean, and it's frustrating and it's unfortunate because it does put us in a very unfortunate situation that when we're talking about continuous lighting, and there's no doubt in my mind that we need to move forward with continuous lighting. That's not an issue. But I don't want to put us always in a position of saying, well, this year it's going to cost us $700,000 for 2,100 lights, but now we're going to budget accordingly for how many lights we decide each year we're going to put in, and then we have a huge hit by all of these lights. So it's going to be important to me when you're looking at our existing lights and seeing the infrastructure, how it can be turned over to the LED to reduce the costs, and then maximizing every opportunity in our future continuous lighting to say that will be LED lighting, because, I mean, we really do need to look at cost as the bottom line of this. It's a huge cost. I mean, it's a huge burden to us. This is not an easy issue to determine. Public safety is of critical importance to this council, and we've identified it as a strategy. But I just want to make sure when you're going into this process and these questions asked by this council are important questions, and they're ones that need to be considered as sort of the long-term strategies when you're taking those into account. So I know Vice Mayor, yes, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Thank you. For clarity, I'm speaking not in regards to, I understand the necessity of photometric curves, but what I'm talking about is dimmable lights when motion detectors haven't been instantiated from cars actively going by. The photometric curve isn't necessarily something that's on the forefront of our mind when there's nobody around. And that's really where I'm trying to emphasize here. And the other point that I'm trying to make about the poles being more expensive, whether or not we have to install a pole, or I should say FP&L has to install a pole, I wasn't able to understand the delta between cost of installing a light onto an existing pole versus the bill that we receive each month for when they have to put up a new pole, and whether or not that is forever ongoing, which I believe it to be. And that's what I would like for our council to be able to actually see.
We can definitely bring back more of the details, and that's part of the master plan as to if we install a light, and all the lights we're talking about now in the future will be LED on existing pole versus having to do a new pole and what the cost is. Be happy to say, okay, if we bought the pole ourselves and put the light on that would be kind of part of the master plan, and that's not that difficult of an addition to it. You know, for future to take a look at that. As far as dimming the lights and saving money, we're talking LEDs, and so the actual energy use is a minor portion of the bill. Dimming the lights and the amount of use, actually FP&L will, most of the time, and on these I'm fairly confident it's going to be the case, they charge us per light. It doesn't matter how much you use or don't use during the night.
So they calculate, it's going to be on this long, this is how much,
and
so there isn't a meter
and
that says.
Yes, and when the LED, when you install an LED light, that usage charge is substantially less, about a third of what it is if you had the high-pressure sodium. So the dimming is not going to save us money, in my opinion, at least not in today's system with FP&L. As far as us putting in our own poles, that, you know, we can look at that. That would be a master plan, but it would be more of a general, not, you know, design type, but if we were to pay for the poles ourselves.
Actually, I can address some of your question about the cost of a pole and the light. If they have to put a light on one of their poles, we only get charged for that fixture and the maintenance cost for that.
What?
If FPL just installs a light on one of their poles, then it's very simple. They charge us for the fixture, and that installation is amortized over 10 years. If they have to put up a pole, same rules apply. We basically get charged for the pole over a 10-year period. When it's done, it's off.
And then after 10 years, that light costs us less money because they paid for the pole over the 10 years. Right.
It costs us the same as if they had installed a light on one of their own poles, or now that?
Yes, exactly.
So, if I may, just to add, so we ultimately will come up with a priority system of the conventional lighting of the continuous lighting systems. At that point, there is a way, you know, we would have to probably take an additional step to look at the cost of that same system owned versus the cost of FPL. It would also be important to look at the cost of maintenance. It would also be important to look at the capital cost you're putting up front and amortize or annualize it to a pole cost or a system cost, and then compare that with the tariff rates.
And I think Chris Quinn last time mentioned he had a breakdown that he could do to say what's the cost of the maintenance per light sort of thing. So I think we have a lot of that data readily available.
And that's the kind of information we'd be forth in the master plan. Realizing that you're still going to be, I mean, FP&L, you're going to still pay an FP&L bill. It's just at this point they're going to have a meter. And it will be less, obviously, but you're paying for the pole. So that's kind of what the comparison would be, and I don't think it'd be that difficult.
Yeah, it's not a difficult return on investment when we determine if they're going to put up poles or we use theirs.
I think
calculation can be done.
Vice Mayor Nobile.
So that, one of my questions, I think, was answered. I didn't assume there was a meter anywhere reading this, and that it was just like the light on my house that I requested. It's just X dollars a month, and X dollars a month, and the usage is pre-calculated, and I'm paying that way. Right. So dimming the lights, but I don't want us to move away from thinking alternate lighting reactive lighting, especially in our parks and other places that are, especially, well, I would love to see us get more proactive in purchasing, not on a corridor, but in parks, in park-like areas, things like that, and then go into the, a progressive type of lighting system where we can control, the lights. I just see what we're talking about today as corridors, straight runs, and they really can't be messed with much, is what I'm, you know what I mean? Because, I've been on the roads here in Palm Coast all hours, and there's always a car going by. We don't have traffic, but we have somebody, you know what I mean? So that's what I was saying. I didn't see the cost in dimming, but also looking at owning poles and lights versus, just leasing them for 10 years, because they're making more than.
Don and I have had that conversation about this, not just, once again, the street lights, but the lights we own in our own parking lots and our sports lights and all those. Yeah. They are a high-ticket item, and they are an area that we may be able to save some money if we do something a little more innovative. So we've already started those conversations.
Good.
That is not what this action item is about, but it's a good conversation as far as future and making sure that we're not just doing the same old just because that's what we've always done, but try to make sure that we stay, with maybe not cutting edge, but at least the most efficient system we can.
Especially when Councilmember Clufus brings up the point of cameras. If there's an opportunity in our park systems, when we have vandalism that continually reoccurs there, to have a moment where we look at this now to say, when we're building future capital projects, I think we've talked about cameras several times as a council, to say, what is the overall cost of installing these cameras? But if it can be something there that is dual, a dual purpose that really provides an added value at a much reduced cost, I really do think that that's an approach that is very wise for us to proceed with.
Cameras are different infrastructure, but it is, in our parks, we have some cameras. We have them now at some of our intersections. The new parks, we always make sure the infrastructure is there to do that. So yes, that's very consistent with what we've been doing also.
Any other council questions at this time? Councilmember Cuff?
No, as Mr. Landon said, I'd certainly like to see the discussion continued and make sure we get more information about what's available. And one of the issues, and again, not for tonight's presentation or this, is, unless I misunderstood, and it's certainly possible, one of the issues with owning poles versus just renting one or basically paying FPL to put up one of their standard ones if it's needed would be the kinds of technology other than the street lights that we could deploy in those poles if we owned them or if they were provided by a contractor that had poles that met those specifications. So I don't think it's just an issue of, do we let FP&L put it up and pay them back over 10 years, or do we pay for it up front? Again, I think there are opportunities for us, if we do our homework, to maybe put up different poles, not on every street light that we have, but in areas that would allow us, and again, not just in parks, but on the public rights-of-way, to take advantage of some of these new technologies that may increase public safety and also save us some money in the long run.
We can fold that in. That's part of the master plan, trying to, that's why it is more complicated and part of that discussion, so yes.
Yeah, and a great example is, we have a plug-in area at our city hall. Who would have ever thought that years ago that would have been an option? So we continue to make advancements. So this is a good discussion.
We used to have a watering trough,
Any other council questions or comments? I'll open it up to the public. Any member of the public that wishes to make comments on agenda item number 7, please do so at this time. If you have to come up to the podium.
Good evening, George Mayo, Palm Coast. As talk of owning our own poles and putting them up, it's possibly a good idea, cost saving, but when you see a car crash somewhere and a telephone pole goes down, within a couple hours, you see FPL out there with their linemen replacing it. Do we have the equipment and do we have a licensed lineman to be able to do that if that pole also has high-powered lines? So would that mean us having to buy more equipment, hire somebody else for the city to be able to do that? And of course, you would have to have somebody on call 24/7, I'm assuming, if a light was hit by a car in the middle of the night. So that it's easy to say, well, we'll put up our own pole, but I think that's cost that we have to consider. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Robert McDonald, Palm Coast. Has the city ever investigated how much it would cost to change all of the light fixtures from regular lights to LED? Because obviously LED is less expensive, it lasts longer, so therefore, at the end of the day, our bill would be substantially less. Now, my second part of the question is, this work order, this obviously went out for bid. And I'm hoping that this company that is trying to get the bid was the lowest bid. But I think that if the city contacted FPL and found out, I'd like to know what the cost would be to replace all of the lights with an LED rather than just a traditional street light.
Next speaker.
Mayor Holland, City Council, Bob Mack. I think the main thrust behind the lighting issue that's been resurrected or at least resuscitated so vehemently lately is the killing of the young girl on Lakeview, at least as I understand it. Would it be cheaper to put in a sidewalk on that stretch of Lakeview with a couple of lights? Why do we need such a heavy concentration of lights, for instance, on Palm Coast Parkway at the exits of I-95? Is it just for aesthetics and for our visitors coming to town? And I appreciate that if that's the reason. But why are there so many lights needed with the new cars with halogen headlights? We have headlights on cars. Why do we need so many lights on Palm Coast Parkway when there's a sidewalk on either side, a wide sidewalk? It's a pathway light or walkway. So that's just my thoughts. Why do we need so many lights? Do we read the newspaper out there? Can we restrict driving to just full moon? You know, I mean, let's get real and try to be efficient about it. Why do we need such bright lights on a highway? I understand the safety issue, but you know, the projection of the glow of the light, the lumens and whatnot, how far apart do they have to be? I mean, go count the traffic, or the street lights at I-95 exit and Palm Coast Parkway. They're about every 40 feet apart. There's 16 of them on each side, at least. And they're the real fancy kind, I know, and it's for our aesthetics, and I do like that. But just, do we need so many poles and lights? Can they be brighter lights that cover more distance? I mean, that needs to be looked into.
Thank you.
Okay?
Next speaker. Closed public comment. George's question about, obviously, do we currently have staff that is able to do what FPL does if there's an accident that occurs?
That is definitely a key factor with maintenance, is that, no, we don't have the inventory of the poles and the light fixtures. We just don't have the equipment. We don't take care of our own lights. If we had a light in a parking lot that was knocked down, we would be calling an electrician that was qualified to do that. So that would be a whole new program for us to get involved in.
And Mr. McDonald's comments, I believe we addressed that this is going to do that, is looking at our existing lights.
Yeah, I've got to take this opportunity to brag about some of the things we've been doing. First of all, I'll address the streetlights in that we were a pilot program with FP&L that they started to determine if they were going to go with LEDs, and if so, what would the brand be that they would offer as part of their inventory. We've been continuing to work with them, so all new lights are going LEDs. But probably the most exciting thing is they have started a new program to switch out all of the existing high-pressure sodium into LEDs, and they've agreed to have Palm Coast be one of the first ones to do this. As far as cost to us, the cost for the actual change-out will be zero, it'll be their cost, and then our monthly charge for each light will be less because it's now LED. It won't be 100% less because of the cost of that fixture and the change-out. So you're going to see our lights go in Palm Coast from high-pressure sodium to LED and save some money long-term. But the other thing that is kind of piggybacking on that in our efforts, and Mayor, like you said, the station out here to charge electric cars and things, is that we did an audit of our own facilities a few years ago and had the engineers tell us which ones of our lighting systems at our facilities would it make sense to change out and what the return on investment would be. And so we have actually been changing out lights in our plants, our water and sewer plants, our fire stations, et cetera, to the LEDs because the reduction in our electric bill will pay for that over somewhere between a year and 2 years, and then it's a reduction. So we've actually evaluated a number of our facilities to save money in that. So we've been very proactive in that. So this conversation is very consistent with what we've been doing in the past.
And as far as the bid, was it the lowest bidder that came?
No, it's not a bid. The engineers, you have a continuous service contract, and then you put out, in this case, we request a letter of interest, who's interested. By law, we can't ask for a price until we determine who is the best qualified firm to do this. Lassiter was the only one that actually submitted that because most of the engineering firms subbed this out, is what we find. And with Lassiter, they had somebody on staff that had the expertise. And once again, we've had good experience. But then we negotiate the price, and that's how the state law requires it.
And the last speaker spoke about sidewalks, which
Yes. Well, I couldn't ask for better questions. Let's talk the sidewalk first. Is that yes, the Lakeview Avenue where the tragedy occurred a few months ago, we actually have a plan for a sidewalk. I think the design is finished. We have grant dollars from FDOT. That is scheduled to get started later in 2017. So this isn't just about lighting. This is also about continuing to extend our path system and including there on Lakeview Avenue.
And speak about the space and the distance.
And then yes, and that's why we're having to hire the engineering firm to do that. Why are the lights so close together? Well, once again, there's actually engineers who they do a lot of the studying of these streets and what is the ideal brightness of lights to make sure the streets are safe, and what is the effect on drivers and pedestrians and the like when you have light, dark, and how bright should it be, how bright the light should be, and that has a lot to do with how far apart they are. But all the things the gentleman talked about, that's exactly why FP&L won't do this for us, and cities really shouldn't do it until such time as it's been designed so that it is as efficient as possible. In the case of both Belterre and Lakeview, they have existing power poles up, and so the first thing you do is figure out if you can use existing poles to put your lights on. In the case of Palm Coast Parkway, those weren't existing poles because we did decorative lights, but the space of the decorative lights has nothing to do with aesthetics. It all has to do with the photometrics of trying to keep the streets safe.
So I think the good news is LED is going to be put in, and including our capital projects that we're looking at. But I also think it's very clear direction that moving forward, we need to continue to look for ways to maybe add different components as far as different opportunities, looking at our different parks and those kind of things, to where we can incorporate a lot of these other strategies.
Right. If anybody wants to know what an LED light looks like, look up. This whole building is nothing but LED. That's why we got LEED certified. So they're pretty standard. You have a lot of different type fixtures. And yes, Mayor, in Holland Park, all our new parks, that's all going to be LED. It's really the only way to go at this point.
Okay, any other further council discussion or questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Move approval?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, it passes unanimously. We'll now move to agenda item number 8, a resolution approving the contract with Halifax Paving Incorporated for the 2017 street resurfacing project. Mr. Lane?
Mayor, City Council, this is an annual project we do every year, and this year it's budgeted for approximately $200,000 for resurfacing our streets. We rate them, we determine which ones are in the most need for basically having the asphalt overlay. This year is a little unique in the fact that we have included 3 path projects to overlay. And so that's included in this cost also, because the same people that overlay a street are also the ones that pave paths. So Sean is going to give you the details.
Yes. Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. Hopefully you guys are having a good night tonight. My name is Sean Costello. I'm your city traffic engineer, and I want to go over with you the 2017 street resurfacing project. First, the purpose of this project is to resurface approximately 13 miles of roadway, repair and resurface existing asphalt paths, and to pave a new path along Old Kings Road and the FP&L easement.
Sean, will you get closer to the mic, please?
Oh, my apologies. For this project, the proposed contractor is going to be Halifax Paving, and they were chosen based off of their low bid submission for this. Halifax Paving has performed numerous projects throughout our city. The specific ones are listed here, which was our resurfacing for last year. The Pine Lakes Parkway North Path that I believe was constructed in 2014, and the Belterre Parkway North widening. As you can see in this slide, these are the list of streets that are going to be resurfaced. For this year, there's approximately 38 streets that are going to be resurfaced, and at 13.35 miles. For the trails, we're going to be, as far as new trails go, the first one is going to be the FP&L asphalt path, which is going to be a new 10-foot wide path that's going to be constructed along the existing FP&L easement, which is going to start at Old Kings Road, and it's going to head north to Forest Grove Drive. There's actually already an existing lime rock base down there, so what city staff or our public works department is going to be doing for this is cleaning up the path that's there right now, adding some new lime rock base, and Halifax will come in and pave this new path. To connect to that path, there's also going to be another path that's going to be built that's going to go along Old Kings Road, and it's going to start at Frontier Drive. Yes, Frontier Drive, I apologize. It's going to be an 8-foot asphalt path, and that one is going to need new lime rock and new lime rock base in addition to the asphalt. So, and this will provide that connection to that new path that's going to be along the FP&L easement. We have the St. Joe's Walkway, which is an existing path. It's going to be completely resurfaced. It's going to be torn up. There's going to be a root barrier is going to be installed to protect the path and the trees that are out there. And Halifax will come in and lay all new asphalt out there. And finally, there's going to be a new path. There's going to be a repair to the Pine Lakes Parkway, where they're doing some work right now, and just adding lime rock and new asphalt. So for our budget, currently we have $1.55 million for street resurfacing and $125,000 for paths and trails. So what we're looking for today is approval in a work order in the amount of $1.675 million for street resurfacing for construction of a new path and path resurfacing and repair. Have any questions?
Council members, Vice Mayor Nobile, and then Council Member Shipley.
Give me the logistics on, we're going to vote tonight on this FP&L path, but we're meeting tomorrow with the residents?
Well, yes. The idea is that this was at the City Council's request, saying that this was a priority when you heard the presentation from the Matanzas students, that we were already out to bid for the resurfacing. We knew that the resurfacing, we could add this easily to the resurfacing project because, for the most part, the base is already there. As I said at workshop, if you decide not to do this, and we can just add some other streets to it. But based on your direction and priority of trying to get this path accomplished, we actually took this opportunity. And as I said last week, yes, we need to get the contractor tied down with the cost and everything. But if you all want to not do the path to the high school through the F section, we can shift those dollars to other streets in the future.
Well, I would like to, I mean, one of our statements to the residents was last time we did this, it fell apart 10 years ago, and one of the problems we had was we didn't get in touch with the neighborhood.
Right.
This is kind of a slap, no, to say we're going to vote on it today, and tomorrow we'll talk to you about it.
If you would like to not.
I mean, I don't want to say yes or no. I'm not saying I don't want this. I'm just saying I like to hear. I mean, I don't want to. I'm going to the meeting, not to say anything, just to hear what everybody's got to say, and I want to give them that opportunity before I sit down and vote on it.
What we have is actual costs now at this point, so it's just part of the. And we know
I mean,
exactly.
I know all we have to do is say, no, we're not doing that.
Right.
I know that,
It's
but I
that
just
easy.
don't like the optics of,
Okay.
you know, that's my opinion. You know, everybody else is with it, I'm good.
It got plugged in as a result of that conversation, just so you know.
Council Member Shipley.
And I'm glad we're going to have a meeting and talk to everybody concerned in that area. I'm hoping it moves forward, because I really think we need the path in that area. And as long as we know that we can, if something should come up at that meeting and we want to change it, we can. But I think we need to still get it in there so that we know that we're moving forward on it in the budget. The question I had is, with the money in that budget, I know there's steps for you to put a street on the list. The ones that are on the list before that, if there's potholes, I know some people have been complaining about potholes as you turn the corners onto their streets. Is there money in that budget for that, that if someone comes forward and says there's a pothole in my street and that needs not the street to be actually resurfaced, it might be next year's list, but to get something done this year?
Yes, that's going to be just our street maintenance budget. That would be separate from this, and our crews would actually do that.
Any other questions or comments? Yes, go ahead.
The trail down Rimfire and others, it's more of a utility, you know, a lot of the curb where the street meets the road on the trail, there's a graded platform there. A lot of them are really torn up. It's almost best to remove them. But what is the maintenance plan in that?
I know what you're talking about. I didn't come prepared for that, but we just need to replace them. Okay. What those are for people that have visually impaired, and that they know that they're about ready to cross a street. So it is for a safety factor.
Some of them don't exist.
And that we actually go out and evaluate sidewalks every year. We just need to add that to that evaluation to see which ones of those need to be replaced. But We've got people in the back that will make sure that we take a look at those and get those replaced. If you have any specifics you'd like to.
All up rimfire, they're all, I mean,
Okay.
a lot, they're all torn up pretty bad.
One of our older ones, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Mayor, council, just wanted to remind those of you that may be attending that community meeting tomorrow night, it's not a sunshine meeting, so please don't communicate amongst yourselves. There's sometimes situations where people in the audience don't recognize the requirements that are imposed on you by state law for the sunshine requirements, and so they get frustrated when you're not communicating and talking to each other, and so I just wanted to remind you that please be careful tomorrow night. Thank you.
And I want to clarify the legalese. It's in the sunshine from the fact that everybody and anybody is invited.
Yes.
Including council members. It's not sunshine from a standpoint, it's not a advertised council meeting.
Right.
But we've invited anybody that wants to come.
Okay, if there's no other council comments at this time, I'll open up to the public for public comment. Any member of the public wishes to speak on agenda item number 8, please do so at this time. See no one, I'll close public comment. Any other council comments before we entertain a motion?
Move approval.
Okay,
Second.
moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, it passes unanimously. Okay, we'll now move to other business, which is present certificates to graduating students of the City of Palm Coast Citizens Academy class. Finally, right?
Hey, we should make
I
them
think
wait
it's
for the consent
appropriate, since each council member participated in a presentation as part of the program, that we all come down and congratulate all of our graduates, and then we'll take a photo. So if everyone can come down as we read the...
Mayor Holland, if you could just stand here and help me present the certificates. I'm Cindy Lane, the Communications and Marketing Manager, and I have the pleasure of being the person who oversees the Citizens Academy, and I'm proud to present this very large graduating class. This is our 40th graduating class of the Citizens Academy, and each of them have come to 5 weeks of sessions where they have learned about all of the different city departments. They have had the opportunity to meet each of you, mayor and council, and also to meet all of our directors and many of our staff. They've had a look at several of our facilities, and they've been a very engaged group, asking lots of questions, and I'm very proud of them for that. We're going to be assisted by my intern, Hannah Husman, who has just graduated from Flagler College, and she's doing an internship in public relations this summer with us. So what's going to happen is, when I call your name, if you'll come up, receive your certificate from the mayor, and then just start to fill in right here. We're going to have a big group photo. So, all right.
And what really was the most engaging Citizens Academy I've ever seen. So congratulations. It really was really engaging.
It's good. It's good. I think we all learn something different each time, and I've certainly learned a lot from the questions that you all have asked. So Gloria Benedict. Most of our graduates are here. We're maybe missing one person, so.
If they can make their way around here.
Yeah, the council members, I each want to greet you.
Thank you.
Jim Bowling. Phyllis Bowling. This time we did have quite a few family, couples, friends, neighbors. It's been fun to see them fighting for sitting together in their groups at dinner. David Burns. Mr. Burns was the big winner and the surprise, which I can't talk too much about because we don't want to spoil it for future academies. And Kathy Burns. And Todd Deal. Mary DeVito. And Robert DeVito. Martin Dussel. Did I say it right? Perfect. Great. And Maxine Dussel. Caroline Fleet. Thank you very much. Thank you for your work. Thank you. And Mark Fleet. Jerry Frame. The same hat you wore every time. You'd think I'd have the names memorized in order as many times as I put your things in alphabetical order.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Catherine Frame.
Maybe I can sound. Okay, thank you so much. Good job. Good job.
All right, Nikki Haynes. Sounds like a party up here at the dais, my goodness.
Thank you. I enjoyed it. I really did, especially the fire department and the utility department.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Andy Hoffman.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Someone's telling secrets at the meeting. Eugene Hoffman.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Janita McCree. She's very coordinated, color coordinated. Thank you. Patricia Nice. I think she might have not been here. Oh, is she coming? Oh, there she is.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Bernard Packman. And Sue Packman.
That's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful.
Thank you.
I learned so much.
Thank you. Rod Poster.
Thanks for the good food.
Thank you. That's great to know.
Yes.
And Tina Poster.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Cindy.
All right, you guys are getting a little rowdy up there. Settle down. There's a few more names. How many times did I have to settle down this rowdy group? So I'm going to call the next two together because Maria Stewart is out of town at her granddaughter's birthday. But James Stewart and Maria Stewart.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Maurice Toussaint.
Thank you, Cindy. You did a good job. It was very nice, thank you.
And last but certainly not least, Ilse Wilhelm.
Great job.
Thank you.
Wow, should we give everyone
Congratulations, all of you. So this is the part where I proclaim you all to be Palm Coast ambassadors. And I'm looking forward to seeing you at a lot of our events and hope to get some of you involved as volunteers. We actually have one of our interns this summer who is doing some research on how to strengthen our volunteer program. So now our challenge is to assemble ourselves in a lovely group. So I need the short people toward the front, and then what I need you to do is sort of stagger the rows so that the faces are in between. Okay, everybody step a few steps that way so we can get the nice... You guys can't be lingering. Squish together like you guys like each other. Squish, squish. Okay, Hannah, stand here. Thank you again. As I mentioned, it's interesting. I was part of the first graduating class of the Citizens Academy. So, you know, one day maybe we'll see you guys take a run for office, you know? I know. Get involved, get engaged. He liked that. Oh. Yes.
Oh, thank God.
Okay. And as a side, thank you for saying that you felt guilty before the presentation and shopping in St. Augustine, and now she's going to shop here because of the presentation, so thank you. Thank you. Okay, we'll now move to the portion of the consent agenda. Any member of the public wish to make comments on agenda item either 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, or 17, please do so at this time. Up. I'm not pulling it. You can come up and speak on any of those items.
I have a question on consent agenda number 15. Is there a reason why the wording is different tonight than it was at the workshop? It's not worded the way it was at the workshop.
Okay, thank you. Any other member of the public wish to make public comment? Please do so at this time.
Good evening, George Mayo, Palm Coast. Article 14, just curious as what the improvements on Belterre Boulevard you are looking at.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Okay, I'll close public comment. Agenda item number 15, Mr. Landon, is there a reason why the wording is different?
I'm not aware of the fact the wording is different. You have to be more specific. Virginia, do you know if the wording is different?
Did not update it. The only thing we updated was our standard paragraph that there were no changes requested to this item, and it was heard at council workshop.
Okay.
It's at Holland Park. I'm the.
I can go look real quick while we move on to the next item.
Let's
How
go
about
do that, and then, well, you're going to have to answer agenda item number 14.
I can do that, too.
Okay, perfect.
Let me get this downloading while I do that. In your agenda packet, you actually see that there are a variety of improvements being proposed by on Belterre between basically Palm Coast Parkway to State Road 100. A majority of those improvements are turning lanes, where you come to an intersection and it adds capacity, it adds safety if we can get turning lanes. You know, Whiteview is a good example where we're doing turning lanes on Whiteview. One of the other major one is at Pine Grove, making it so that you cannot cut across the median coming out of Pine Grove, because that is where we've actually had some fatalities in that area. So this was a direct result of a safety study that we conducted recently that we made the presentation to the City Council on those proposed improvements. George, I don't know George's last name, but George's main issue that he has brought up a number of times is Market and Eastwood intersection, the full intersection there, just south of Central Avenue, East Hampton. That is slated for a signal, and so you're talking about a major improvement there. That will be a standalone improvement on its own. That we have plans to start plugging into our capital improvement program. But that is different than just, it will include turn lanes, et cetera, but it's a whole signalized program. So then that would be a matter of getting into our capital improvement program.
Any comment? So we're putting a signal there, and then we'll have a signal at Eastwood, East Hampton also? Is that what we're talking about?
Well, East Hampton...
Hampton has a light now.
Yes.
Then we'll have one at Eastwood also?
Yes, that is the game plan.
Not happy. But I know what you're talking about, George. I know it's dangerous to get across there. I'd rather see it closed.
In looking at last week's agenda, it did not say Holland Park. It basically replaced damaged and rotten deck and fascia boards, install asphalt assembly. So it clarified the fact that it was at Holland Park with this agenda. Just for clarification for everybody, is that, you know, if I can, I'll tell you, make that announcement right now. Our grand opening for the new Holland Park is a week from this Friday. Help me out with the date, somebody. 16th, from 5 to 8 p.m. with the ceremony starting at 5:30. So that's exciting, and we're finally bringing that one to a close. The replacement of these roofs was not included in that contract, but then we had a little, in the meantime, had a little storm called Hurricane Matthews and did damage to the structures. And so this item is actually repairing those damages. The damages to those roof structures that we had in the park that we weren't really planning on replacing. We intend to submit the cost of this to FEMA for reimbursement as part of their overall program. So that's totally unrelated to our park improvement program. It is strictly tied into the stormwater or the hurricane damage.
Thank you. Okay, I will entertain a motion to approve consent agenda items number 10 through 17.
Move approval?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, it passes unanimously. We'll now move to public participation. Any member of the public that wishes to make public comment on items not on the agenda, please feel free to do so at this time.
Jack Carroll, Palm Coast. I read in the paper that Ormond is going to have, he's going to open up these, what do you call them, these, what we used to have? Help me out.
The poker casinos, the
Yeah, right, you're right.
Cafes.
With the gambling. I was just wondering, are we going to follow through with them? Are we going to do that also? Or are we going to stick to the negative and not have them at all? That's the one question. Let me say that. I wasn't at the last meeting, but I was reading in the paper. How many of you, besides Ms. Holland, knew anything about running a city before you became council people? How about you? No. So you see, there was a remark made that, now you got to bear with me. I lost my thought. Oh, anyway, people don't learn anything until they do it. Now, we were talking about the city charter. When you said that, you can do it better than the public because you're sitting up there, is a fallacy. It's not true. If we have people in Palm Coast that can do the job better than you are, but they just don't want to run for office, so you can't say we're not going to do the city charter because you don't know what you're doing, and we do. So I think you would bring the city charter back up before the budget. I was going to bring up something else, but I can't think of it now. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Jack. Next speaker.
Robert McDonald, Palm Coast. I hate to pick on Mr. Nobile, but unfortunately, he's the council person in the R section. I've noticed on Belterre, on the west side of the street, between Whiteview and Royal Palm, they have replaced, I don't want to give you an exact number, but it's at least 40, if not 50, concrete squares. And I would like to know why in the last year and a half or thereabouts, they have to have replaced at least 40 or 50 squares of concrete. We don't have salt from the road. We're 7 miles from the ocean, and we don't have trees that are popping up the sidewalk squares. So if somebody could tell me why we're popping up sidewalk squares, so many, and that's only in a 1-block radius. It's even worse as you go north and south on Belterre. Now, my second comment, and this is something that's been bothering me for a long time, so I think it's time that it comes out. Last week at the public workshop in that room, I counted 22 city employees sitting in that room for nearly 5 hours. Now, I would like somebody to explain to me why we have to have 22 city employees sitting at a meeting for 5 hours on my sweat. Now, they got to be getting paid minimum. Let's go lowball. They got to be paying minimum $100 a day. Minimum. So that means that's $2,000 for a day. Now, they were there for 5 hours. So we'll give you the benefit of the doubt they were only there for 4. That's $1,000 out of taxpayers' money to have city officials sitting there for no reason. They don't get up. The only one that got up out of the 22 was Bo, and he got up and made a wonderful presentation. But everybody else just sat there, didn't contribute. Now, if anybody has a question, they can't ask that person a question. The question has to come to the mayor. So I'd like the city to explain to me how you can justify paying anywhere between $5,000 to $6,000 a month to city employees who sit there and have nothing to do with the running of the meeting.
Next speaker.
Good evening again, George Mayo, Palm Coast. Just to clarify, when I asked about Article 14, it said improvements to Belcare, Parkway, and Boulevard. And I asked about Boulevard, which is from 100 south. So I didn't know if there was anything specific in that. Number two, congratulations to the council when we got our Class 4 FEMA designation. You rightly deserve the credit, along with the mayor. But what I've noticed this time and a few times before when we receive recognition, everybody that came up congratulated our councilman and the mayor, and nobody mentioned Mr. Landon, and Mr. Landon never gets in the picture. Well, he's the person who hires the people to do this. So he obviously knows what he's doing and hiring the right people. And the people behind him are doing this. So I think I would just like to see once in a while, maybe he's camera shy, but maybe see Mr. Landon in the picture, because I think he, along with all of you, deserves some recognition for some of these achievements that we achieved. Thank you.
Next speaker. Seeing none, I'll close public comment. As far as Mr. Carroll's comments regarding the internet cafe following suit, I have not heard anything in regards to us introducing that idea again. So, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, unless it's brought up by someone, it's not been on any agenda, it's not been discussed, put on any workshops, it's not been at any point any discussion.
We do not allow them, and anytime the subject comes up, the answer is no. And first I've heard of the fact that we have other communities that might be considering this. This was a statewide issue. This wasn't just Palm Coast, but there was quite a scandal of these internet cafes and the issues that went along with that gambling. So I haven't heard that they're coming back.
And as far as the city charter, we're waiting till after the budget because we are required by state law to pass a budget and a trim notice by a certain period of time. It takes an extraordinary amount of time and energy by our staff to put together our budget, and we will discuss the city charter following it. I would just state, as far as the comments of the residents not knowing what they're talking about, I believe my comment was, we're privy to a lot more information on the day-to-day operation of the city of Palm Coast, rather than the residents, and the Citizens Academy can attest they've learned a lot through this process. I'm sure that they did not know previously. So it's absolutely no disrespect to our residents. I have great respect for every single resident that resides in our city, and we're looking forward to their input when we open it up for them to provide that input in town hall settings. So that's going to be a great experience we're looking forward to, Jack. As far as Mr. McDonald, can you explain, Mr. Landon, why the R section, West Side, Whiteview, and Royal Palm, there's been concrete squares that have been continually replaced?
Well, I can tell you it's not just the R section, it's all the sidewalks throughout our community. We actually have a very aggressive maintenance program because it's dangerous when you have concrete cracks. And you know, what we just experienced with real dry weather, and then it gets really wet, you know, concrete starts shifting. I can tell you that sometimes it's because of maintenance equipment, particularly when you have the power poles there, or we have some maintenance equipment on those streets. There's a variety of reasons, but every year we go through and inspect and mark those that are cracked to the point where we consider them dangerous or going to be dangerous. If you've ever ridden a bike and hit a crack that stopped the front wheel, it's not a pleasant experience, and we're trying to, and I will tell you, it saves us money long-term because people love to sue you for tripping on the crack. And we always lose those because everybody knows that, city should have repaired it. So, yeah, we're very proud of our maintenance program. And it's a safety factor, but if you don't, then long-term, you're just going to replace the whole stretch. So,
If I could add on, and I don't do this very often, but I will correct the city manager. We don't always lose those. Because the city has a really good maintenance program. And we can use that as evidence that there has not been negligence by the city of Palm Coast, because we have been reactive and proactive in trying to maintain our infrastructure, especially our sidewalks, to show to the course that we have not been negligent. We have not been waiting for accidents to happen before we go out and fix our infrastructure and our sidewalks.
And kudos to our legal representation.
well, but your favorite city manager gets the last word in there, is that anytime attorneys get involved, we're all losing.
We're all losing.
All right.
So, Bob.
I resemble that remark.
And as far as, can you please comment on city employees attending our workshops and city council meetings?
I am very proud of our team approach and the fact that we try real hard to make sure that we're connected to city council. This is, if they're not here, they're going to be listening to it so that they know what their project is, the direction of city council for their projects. Everybody in the room has a project or involved in that project, except for the directors, and then they're responsible for making sure things happen. So I've been in organizations where city council gives direction in a certain way, and then we got to redo it because we went the wrong direction. So this is a matter of trying to make sure our employees are engaged, and they're engaged in the whole process, and I think it's critical because we all need to be on the same team, and that includes all the way up to city council to all our employees. So very proud of our system here.
And if you can reiterate as far as George's question about.
Yes, I apologize. Two things. First of all, I asked the same question, why do we say Parkway and Boulevard? Did I not, Virginia? Yes. And her answer is because that's what the safety study called for, and we actually did some signage improvements in south of 100, but the engineer study did not indicate that there was any warrant for turn lanes or other improvements down in that area. So south of State Road 100, we do not have any turn lane projects proposed at this time.
Madam Mayor, I have a question on that.
Go ahead.
We do still have the right turn lane going northbound. Right?
At State Road 100, yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
once again,
Okay,
that
that's
whole
something
State
else.
Road is a
Right.
separate project, but yes,
Okay.
they're at State Road. And actually, FDOT has some other improvements they're proposing at that major intersection.
As far as recognizing staff for their accomplishments, we always try to include Mr. Landon in that. We recognize him as sort of the individual that hires all the staff under him. So if Mr. Landon would care to be in photos, I'm sure he would love to at any moment, so.
Yes, and I appreciate the comment, but yes, I am a little photo shy, as my staff will tell you. But more importantly, that's what I do. I'm supposed to be working and getting it done, but I'm very comfortable with taking the back seat when it comes to these type of recognitions. I think more important is that the people who actually get the work done are recognized, and it was great to see the whole team, or most of the team that could be here tonight, being recognized. That's what makes me feel good, and that's what's important to me.
Okay, discussion by city council of matters not on the agenda. Councilmember Cuff?
Nothing for this evening.
Vice Mayor Nobile?
I've got two quick things that I had jotted down. One is regarding Holland Park. I wrote down some notes. We're 10 days away from opening Holland Park, and I'm excited for our community once again enjoy one of our most premier amenities in the city. There's no doubt that people are going to be flocking to Holland Park, and rightfully so, because it looks tremendous. I've expressed concern multiple times in previous workshops, but tonight I want to do so in a more succinct manner. Simply put, we need more security cameras installed at Holland Park as soon as possible. It's a matter of public safety, and I believe when our park opens, we will have a grand total of 2 cameras installed as intended by the plans, and I consider this number unacceptable. I'm asking tonight for our council to at least ask for direction of Mr. Landon to formulate a strategy which will provide security camera coverage for the vast majority of the park. And I would also strongly encourage Mr. Landon to work with our Flagler County Sheriff's Office to ensure they're comfortable and familiar with how we plan to mitigate any potential risks. And I can say with confidence that this isn't a pipe dream because I've taken a tour of Holland Park and seen the fiber routed through the conduit with my own eyes. The solution is simple. We deploy IP video cameras and retain the footage for a set duration before it gets archived. IP video cameras cost on the high end of $1,000 a piece, and the cost of data retention is minuscule. It's a small investment to pay for a peace of mind it provides. And my second item I want to talk about was FiberNet. Last week, I was concerned with how Mr. Landon used our municipal broadband utility as an example for a situation which he and his staff weren't sure what to do with. The item we added to our strategic action plan is very pointed, and I believe our discussions were quite clear. We were asking for an outside firm to conduct a feasibility study to assess our current business model and our future build-out strategy. I would like to disclose for the rest of Council's public consumption that I've personally submitted to Mr. Landon an example feasibility study which was provided to ACALA by Columbia Communication 2011 to fill a near identical request by their council. This week, I sent Mr. Landon the minutes from their October 11, 2011 meeting where they formulated how to procure the same report that we're asking for in our strategic action plan. I received a response from Mr. Landon that my email would be forwarded onto the appropriate people, and I'd just like to ask Mr. Landon to give a little bit more insight into the members that make up that team and their current progress, as well as ask what type of additional direction we as a council can provide to expedite this process and remove the cloud of uncertainty.
There are 2 items.
Holland Park, the security cameras, I know they're in the plans. I'm not sure exactly where they are, but, and that whole park is in a phased approach. If I didn't come prepared to answer the question as far as cameras in Holland Park.
Well, I mean, I would actually concur. I mean, I know we talk a little bit about the balance of all the vandalism that takes place. I remember many years ago, this was actually, my father was serving on the council, and some kids went in and burned down the restrooms. And, you know, it was great cost to the city to rebuild and everything else. So it's something we definitely need to take a look at, and I know we've discussed it. So within a budgetary item, when you come back to us on where we are budgetary-wise with Holland Park, if there is the ability to add more cameras, I think it's beneficial to do so at that time.
Great. We can look at it with what it would take to do it before we get into the next fiscal year. I don't have any problem with that, but I'm just not prepared for it tonight.
Madam Mayor? I like the idea of cameras in the parks. I don't want to focus on a park. If we're going to make a plan, I want a plan that includes all the parks, because I get a lot of complaints from my park, you know, in Rimfire. And you know, I don't know how much it's going to prevent, but it'll help us at least catch and punish, so maybe that will act as a prevention. But I don't want to see a plan for Holland. I want to see a plan, you know, that takes us across, because, you know, I can just hear my phone.
Let me give you a little background. This was
And
actually...
let me say, I think we did discuss that as a council and said we
Okay.
want to take a look at every one of them.
That's fine, yeah.
Yes.
Right, yes. I mean, this is, you know, Holland Park is coming online, but that project is, had certain infrastructure included in it, and you've asked for us to go above and beyond that, but I'm not, just didn't come prepared for that tonight. But I would like to give a little background, is that we did have a master plan for working towards having cameras in all our parks.
Yeah.
Then we had a little recession, and that was one of the things that got cut. But Ralph Carter, I know, has cameras in it. Seems to me like we did something at Heroes Park. You know, does it really deter? Most people would tell you no. It's frustrating to us because we're, you know, no matter where you point them, it seems like the bad deed happens
somewhere else,
where it's not in the view of the camera. But Yeah, we can, I mean, that was something we did talk about. We can bring that back as far as our
also-
security program.
Also, you know, we're going to have discussion tomorrow night at this Matanzas. It would be probably helpful to the residents if they heard there were going to be cameras on that path. You know, so that if there was, you know, because a lot of times what happens, they call the police, by the time the police get there, it's gone, you know, and we can't see what happened, we don't know what happened. They show up, and it's this cat and mouse thing, you know.
Yep.
And,
Now, you're talking about all our paths, you know, the comprehensive approach to all our paths, you know, that's.
well, I'm not
another
concerned
step.
with all the paths. Most of the paths are secluded from housing, but the ones that are, you know, right adjacent to housing in backyards and stuff, again, you know, it would make me feel a little better. You know, we have some that
Yeah,
have
actually-
fencing and stuff like that. We don't.
Most of our paths along the streets are in
Streets,
people's
yeah.
backyard. along
Why don't
people's
we just
backyards.
put this on a future workshop and
Yeah,
follow up
it-
about
it's
cameras?
it's already there. It's just, we're just not ready to bring it to you.
And as far as the fiber net, I know that is part of our strategic action plan. It was identified as a priority to make sure we are going out and looking
Yes,
at this
and-
comprehensively.
And it's the same team that did went out and hired or proposed the hiring, and eventually we hired the consultant for cell phone coverage in town. And so that same team will, by design, was now working towards how can we change our approach to FiberNet and the like. So that is also in the work plan that's scheduled to come to City Council soon. You know, I haven't got an update on that one either for you, but I do know that that is in the works and coming your way.
So, yeah, we'll be able to hear that on a future workshop. And Councilmember Shipley.
And kind of on the same note, with Holland Park opening, Florida Park Drive being such a busy street, just if we could do a workshop, or if you have an update on the trucks that we had talked about in the workshop. Mr. Nobile had asked for a sign about trucks and some kind of signage up for the crosswalk where everyone's going to be crossing over to get to that park, because I'm thinking it's going to be big for young
Yes,
and old.
We've talked about that too, to make sure that we proposed looking at a crosswalk there at the intersection, at the driveway intersection. I'll find out for you on that one too.
Great. I have a few items. One, I have to talk about squirrels at, at St. Joe's Walkway. Apparently, we have a lot of residents that feed squirrels, that the squirrels are now following the walkers. I've received an email, a text saying, is there any restrictions against feeding squirrels? Interestingly enough, when I went on the bird walk with Jason in our office, he said it's actually very bad to feed the squirrels. It's not a good thing to feed the squirrels. So apparently it's an issue. And I know that historically we had sort of a feral cat issue over there, and it was handled by saying, please do not feed the feral cats. I don't know how the city approaches these kind of things to inform the residents.
It's illegal to feed wildlife in our
okay.
parks. It's a matter of catching the person that's feeding them. No, they should not be feeding the wildlife of any kind on public property. And it's this reason, whether it's a squirrel or an alligator, once they become used to it, then they become nuisances for other people who aren't as fond of that particular wildlife. So you should not be feeding any wildlife. And Mayor, if you maybe let us know exactly where it's occurring, my staff may know, and then maybe we can try to determine when they're doing it.
And it's
and
like
then
around
approach it.
Canopy Walk, it's around that bend on the Intercoastal.
It's on the turn.
It's
down
on the
by
turn.
waterway,
It's on the
From the
turn.
bridge that connects you to the waterway front,
Okay,
waterfront park.
all right. Well, we can try to, particularly if you give me a time where they're usually out there, then we can approach them and.
Whenever they see a person walking.
Lunchtime.
Yeah.
I was asked to bring it up, and I didn't realize when Jason said it's not allowable and it's dangerous, so
It
they
is-
should not be doing
It
it.
is just bad news to feed any wildlife for a variety of reasons.
Okay, so we'll follow up with that as well. And I did have a question about Holland Park, a very popular discussion tonight. I was approached by Nikki and Larry White from the American Flag Project asking why and if there's a possibility to put a flagpole at Holland Park.
Anybody know? I'd have to look into it, Mayor.
Okay. Yeah, and if we can,
We can. I just don't know if it's actually part of this project or if it's something we'd have to do separate.
so I can give you their contact information too. They're the flag
Right.
group, so.
Familiar with them.
And then the last thing, and I spoke to Mr. Landon about this, the last radio program we did a program on fraud and fraud against our seniors in our community. And it was quite alarming, quite frankly. We had Jay Marr and a representative from the Attorney General's office for, I don't know what the program's called, I think it's Crime versus Seniors. And they laid out all the crimes that are occurring within our community. And it's not just unlicensed contractors, but it has to do with moving companies and interstate moving companies. And there's a lot of technicalities that go along with it. There's a grandparent scam going on right now. And Jay said a lot of it, if we can help the residents on the front end a lot more than we can help them on the back end, because once they're scammed, the Attorney General, once they sign a contract, and it's a contractual relationship, it makes it difficult. And there's something that Jay had forwarded to me, even in the state law, that, I don't know what it's called, Jim, do you remember? It's it's almost like a power of attorney in a weird kind of way.
It's an assignment of your benefits.
Assignment of benefits. So these scammers are going to our residents and to do a project in their house. They ask them to sign this. Once they sign that, they are the direct relationship with the insurance. Yes. So, and that's in the state legislature, and they've been trying to get it removed But I wasn't aware of all of these things, and Jay said it's a free service for the Attorney General, and I think it would be important for us if we could look to the future for doing a workshop for our residents to come in and have our building department really talk to our residents to say, if someone's knocking on your door and handing you a business card, because there's other licenses, like they told me, they used an example on the show that said one woman that got scammed, she had asked for the license, and the guy said, yes, I have a license, and actually wrote down his driver's license number. So, but, they just didn't know. And so I think we just need to be very proactive with this, and because it is a service that we do offer to our residents, especially if they're going through building products and things like that, or reconstruction projects, it is very technical in nature. And I had no idea the depth of what was going on in our community and how many cases they're getting a month. It's very upsetting to me, and a lot of it's our seniors. So if it was okay with the council, I wanted to see if we'd be interested in hosting a workshop with our building department to invite our residents in to talk about the process, talk about ways to help them, and say, before you do this, this is a list of things you should require, just being more proactive.
Is it also something maybe they can do during the neighborhood watch?
That's what I mentioned that afterwards, absolutely. I think everywhere we can hit it, we should hit it. But again, I had no idea, even like I said, with the moving companies, you sign that contract, you are locked in, and they take full advantage of that whole moment.
I actually had a weird scam that came to me that I gave to Commander Carmen, where someone sent me an actual check and said, just cash the check and give me a portion of it, and the rest of it was it wasn't a certified check.
Bank check.
A bank check. So if you go to your bank, you can deposit it because it's a good check,
That
but then
just-
they find out afterwards it was stolen and they take the money back from
And
you.
that just happened, and the gentleman that was on the show said a woman went to the first bank, and the bank said, listen, you're being scammed. She didn't believe it. She went to the second bank, and they cashed it. So it is really serious, and it was very upsetting to hear that this is happening. I mean, unlicensed contractors, I have zero tolerance for coming into our community during Hurricane Matthew and what they did to our residents, but the caseload that they have is quite alarming, and anything we can do to educate and inform, I think it's incumbent on us to do. And one last thing, I spoke recently at a hurricane preparedness, it's hurricane season, if you can believe it, but hurricane preparedness breakfast, and Jerry Forte, our chief deputy, was in attendance with me to answer any questions by our residents, and he brought up a great suggestion of our firefighters, because we have so many of those hurricane pamphlets sitting in a box, like a lot of them, that years past, they went to the Publixes and they were baggers, and then they handed out the hurricane guide to all the residents. And I know Captain Berryhill, I think, is working on a strategy to do that, but I thought it'd be kind of nice for us as a council maybe to volunteer our time one day to say, I mean, you know what I mean, to like, whatever they work through, to say, this is your hurricane preparedness guide, please be prepared, this takes us seriously, because one of the things we learned was the fact that there's that sense of complacency now, because we sort of dodged a bullet on this last one.
We're good for another 10, 15 years.
Yeah, and everybody that was there, the Red Cross, everybody was saying, our serious number one concern is this complacency. So we have to really be very aggressive in arming our residents with as much information as possible. So I thought it'd be kind of neat for us as a council to do this as well, and hand out as many as possible.
I would love handing them out. Do we have to say who we are while we're handing them out? I just say, here you go?
Hi, I'm Chief Beadle.
You just tell them you're Melissa Holland.
And that's all I have, so.
Well, I'm good with that, work it
Okay,
out.
all right, perfect, thank you. And city attorney matters not on the agenda,
Nothing further.
nothing? And city manager,
Well, let me piggyback on that. I think I just heard the chief say next week, we schedule it for the firefighters, so, you know, either Chief Beadle or Forte can get with you and get you connected up with how to do that. A couple of other events, well, this Friday, which is the 9th at about 8:45, we have our movie in the park here at Central Park, very, very popular. Also, just want to reiterate, Holland Park grand opening, June 16th, 5 o'clock to 8 o'clock, and with a 5:30 ceremony. For many of us, very excited to see that happen. I will say that although the contractor turned out obviously to be a total disaster, our surety company, and I'm going to forget their names, I'm afraid, but they actually came through. All indications we're going to be under budget. All our local, in fact, I think all the subs, but I know all the local subs have been paid. So that a lot of positive news ever since we got basically a new construction management company and got it done for us. So that is excellent news. Also, we're still doing the Mayor's Healthy Challenge. A lot of activities. I know a number of you are involved in that. Best thing for me to do is just say palmcoastgov.com/healthy, and it will take you to all the activities there. The last thing I have is that it's hurricane season, so hopefully the fires don't pop up at all. But the county's burn ban will expire next Monday, the 12th. I do want to stress to people in Palm Coast that open burning is not permitted in the city limits of Palm Coast 24/7, 365. So just because the county lifts the burn ban in Palm Coast, we still don't allow the fires, obviously, with our history and a lot of wooded
I
areas.
can make my steak, though, on Monday, right?
Yes.
On the barbecue, all right.
Yes.
That's important.
Open, yeah, barbecue grill's fine come Monday, but not the open. But please, if you do the barbecue grill, make sure you don't dump the coals out in the woods. Okay.
Me and my neighbors.
Mayor, that's all the fun I have for one night, so that's all I've got.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you.